the exchanges, right? And it's actually my I work in this exchange. So you can buy Bitcoin, you can store Bitcoins in this particular exchange, but for that you need to enter your email ID and you need to enter your password, right? So whenever you enter all these credentials, it gets stored in a very centralized server. And when it gets stored in the centralized server, then what happens is that the hacker can actually get into these servers and they can steal away your password, and then they have the direct access to your cryptocurrency wallets. But in the case of this, like a private user wallet, um, let me just show you this particular website, my Ether wallet. Brief from the beginning, we face some issues with the um, okay. So the moderator wants me to explain this all over again because there is some issue in the recording. So let me just go again on this. So yeah, if you want to talk about the cryptocurrencies, the first thing is that there are two types of cryptocurrencies, like coin and token, right? And they are very different in nature, but at the same time, a lot of people from the industries are getting confused between them. So the difference between coin and token is that a coin has its own blockchain, whereas a token is built on a blockchain. Also, that the coin is only used for the payment purposes, whereas a token is also used for the payment purposes as well as to access the product and services. Now, this must be getting a lot confusing for all of you guys, but let me just give a simple analogy once again. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple, it's more like a Windows application, not a Windows application, but a Windows software, right? An operating system. So Android, iOS, Ubuntu, Windows, it's like they are on they are like a blockchain in their own. Whereas a token means an application that has been built on the Windows or on the on the Windows or Ubuntu and iOS or like Android. So again, to give a simple analogy, it's like how Indian media, is the whole story of Indian media is just is built on Kangna Ranaut's story. In the same manner, all these, applications like MS Word, Chrome, VLC, they all are built on the operating system itself, like Android, iOS, and Windows. In the same manner, these tokens are Chainlink, Tether, Omicycle, they are built on the blockchain itself, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. And there are so many other coins as well. It's not just that there are only 3 blockchains in the world, there are like multiple blockchains. Now, cryptocurrency digital wallets, like I told you, um, tokens are built on blockchain. What does it mean? See, when we say tokens are built on blockchain, what I mean is that the way these applications like MS Word, Chrome, VLC are being built on the Windows, they are working on the operating system. In that same manner, these OmiCygo, these tokens, they are built on the Bitcoin blockchain. For example, anyone from the computer science background, they will understand that we make applications on the C++, Python, stuff like that, right? So in the same manner, this is the exactly. I can't see my cursor. Yeah, so this is like a Python, this is like a C++ thing, and then we are making applications like a Windows application on top of that. So did I help you with that particular query of yours? Lovely Oswald Jain. Okay, perfect. Uh, Moving further, yeah, like I explained this, is blockchain like Bitcoin, Ethereum, why Ripple price is not like those? Okay, this is one of the, you are directly jumping on the curve. That is fine. See, the one of the main reasons why the price of Ripple is not really increasing, where exactly is Ripple? It is down there in 6th position. It's hardly 0.905. It's a good project. Hello, can these blockchain networks fail NFTs? Wait a second, there are so many questions that are coming up. Okay, one of the reasons why XRP is not really working, is not really, going that high is because XRP means Ripple, right? Ripple lawsuit. So there is an issue with the Ripple company itself, where the SEC, Security Exchange Commission in America, they have put a lawsuit on Ripple because of the way it is functioning. So if there is any negative news, with respect to a particular coin, its price will never increase. So right now they're still fighting against it. Once the SEC clears Ripple, it will shoot up. So you need to definitely watch out for this news. Always follow this news about Ripple, and the day okay, Okay, fine. We'll answer the question later. But yes, explain about this. The day, the lawsuit gets removed, the day Ripple just gets cleared with all these charges, the price of Ripple will definitely increase. Anyway, moving further, talking about the public key, like I told you, public key is like account number, private key is more like a password to access your digital wallets. And there are two types of digital wallets. The first one is exchange cryptocurrency wallet, like I told you, and the second one is private user wallet. So in the exchange cryptocurrency wallet, it's more like your password, like literally your email ID and password. You just enter your email ID and password, and then only you can have access to all the wallets. And also in the exchange cryptocurrency wallet, you will be having access only to your public key and not your private key. The private key will be saved with the main exchange wallet only, right? But in the case of private user wallet, there is no email ID, there is no password. It's only private key and only public key that you have. So that means if tomorrow, first of all, it's very difficult to hack into a private user wallet. It's very easy to hack into the exchange cryptocurrency wallet. I will explain you how. So the question is, are these exchanges really safe? The Metgox was an exchange that got hacked in 2014. Like I think $32 million was stolen from that. Binance was hacked in 2019. Bittrex was hacked in 2019, and the latest hack was in 2020. I think I made this presentation a couple of months back, so that this news is latest to that date only. I think there are more exchanges that got hacked, but let us understand the blockchain hacks. But it is not the blockchain that are getting hacked; it's the exchanges that are getting hacked. And yeah, Bitcoin can also get hacked. It's not like Bitcoin is not prone to all these attacks, but I will explain how. And it's very rare, that Bitcoin will ever be hacked, or for that matter, any of the cryptocurrencies. So talking about the exchanges hack, I would say that suppose these are the exchanges, like OKX is the exchange, Kraken, Binance, Bittrex, these are all the exchanges. And they have a centralized server where we are storing all the public key and the private key. Are you guys getting this? Okay. So the point is that this centralized server has all the public and private keys. So what happens is that the hacker, he just goes for the brute force attack, SQL injection, social engineering, Trojan attack. These are all the types of attacks that you can do on a centralized server. And then your system will be compromised. Like the centralized server will be compromised. And then the hacker will have the access to all the private wallets, and then he will take away all the money. So this is how a blockchain hack is happening. And then like, it is not a blockchain hack, it's the exchange that is getting hacked. But a lot of media houses say that Bitcoin got hacked. It's not the Bitcoin that got hacked. It's the exchange that is keeping all the Bitcoins in it. That got hacked, right? Apart from that, there is a popular myth that Bitcoin, like a blockchain, is like really safe. It is not. It is not safe. But see, there's a thing called 51% attack, which I can explain, but it will take a lot of time. So I just want you guys to simply search the word 51% attack, Bitcoin or blockchain, and then you will totally understand what exactly it is. And since we have limited time, so I have to move a bit further, a bit fast. So why blockchain is my favorite? First of all, it's anonymous, and secondly, it's transparent. But these are very oxymoron statements. Like if something is anonymous, how can that be a transparent thing, right? I will explain you later. So let's go to MyEtherScan, right? So MyEtherScan is a website where we can see all the transaction that is taking place on the Ethereum network. Cool. MyEtherScan. So tomorrow, like not tomorrow, see right now, if I transfer like 100 rupees to Rishi on Paytm, the only one who can see this transaction is either Rishi or me. Only he will know. But if I send one Ethereum, or I mean, if I'm sending one Ethereum, that means Rishi is quite a lucky person. But that being said, that if I send one Ethereum to Rishi, so in the latest transaction on this website, MyEtherScan, that transaction will be shown over here. So this is a transaction that was shown like just 23 seconds ago. And if I click on this particular transaction, you guys can see that someone transferred $938 from this account to this account. Now, this is very transparent. Like whatever is happening on the Ethereum network, this is very transparent. The whole world can see. Now, why I say this anonymous? Because, okay, now when I say from this to this, if you can highlight this part, does this sound something familiar? Like something I showed you in the previous slide. This is, wait a second, okay. This is the public key, right? The one that I'm showing, this one, this is the public key. That means this is an account number of one person and he's sending to the account number of another person. But we have no idea whether this is Osama bin Laden or whether this is Modi ji or whether this is me or Rishi. So this is why I say that it is completely anonymous. And that's why I totally love this thing, right? And okay, so like I told you why I love blockchain, it's because of anonymity. And yeah, one more thing, it's the money, right? So I think way back in 2019, I was receiving like 225. I was about to receive $225 for a freelance project, and the person, the client sent me $225 via PayPal. So this is a screenshot, and you can see that they sent me $225, but the PayPal guys, they cut around like $12. That's like 800. No, not 800. It's like 1,500 rupees from my own pocket, and it really hurt me a lot. So the next day I decided, it's better that you guys should send me money from the Ethereum network. And then this is okay. And I did a very big project over there, and they sent me like $7,870. And can you see the transaction fee over here? They sent me like $7,870, and the transaction fee was just $0.11. So can you see the big difference in the transaction cost? They are charging me $12 for a transaction of $225. That's like 10%, almost like 10%. Is it 10%? Something like 5 to 8% varies. I mean, I didn't do the maths. And here itself, can you actually see the transaction, percentage? It's hardly 0.11%. So yeah, that's the beauty of blockchain. The transaction cost is very less. Apart from this, yes, this presentation is almost over, but yeah, there are a few more points that I wanted to discuss. So here are the few things that we need to consider when we are choosing the cryptocurrency. And I'm very sure that I was looking at the questions that you guys were asking, and they were talking about how to predict the fluctuations. Okay. See, it totally depends. Okay, someone, the moderator told me to answer all these questions a bit later. Anyway, the point is that I'm very sure that you guys will ask me that what are the fundamentals behind the Bitcoin, or for that matter, any of the cryptocurrencies. And a lot of you guys are saying there are no fundamentals. Even I'm sure that Rishi must think like that. But the point is meme coin good for investment? I will tell you that later, guys. Don't worry. So when you talk about the fundamentals, what exactly do we mean by fundamentals? It's like a foundation. It's like a basis. So if you want to evaluate any cryptocurrency, and honestly, I'm more like a fundamental analyst and not a technical analyst. I'm still working on that aspect, but yeah. If you're talking about the fundamentals, I would say whenever you choose any kind of cryptocurrency to invest in, always look at the fundamentals. Like one of the fundamentals are like people behind the project. So we know that Satoshi Nakamoto built Bitcoin, but we don't exactly know who is Satoshi Nakamoto, right? So in that case, the fundamentals of Bitcoin is lacking, right? But there are a lot of other fundamentals as well, which I will discuss. But one of the best projects that I find so far, and it is coming from a personal opinion and not from the OKX opinion, the company for which I work. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, and one of the cryptocurrencies that I find really interesting is Cardano. I think some of you guys must have heard about this. So Cardano is something like, now, like I told you, that we need to look at the people who are behind Cardano. So let's just do a simple Google search. Who is the founder of Cardano? And the answer will be like Charles Hoskinson, whatever his name is, right? But who exactly is this person, right? So the Google will tell you that, early cryptocurrency adopter, co-founder of Ethereum. Now we all know. Now, one of the ways to evaluate whether this person is good or not is to look at his previous projects. Now he's a freaking co-founder of Ethereum. Now you need to evaluate whether Ethereum did well or not. So you need to just simply go to this website called CoinMarketCap, go to Ethereum, and just see its price action over the course of time. Like he was a co-founder. That means since the inception, he was a co-founder. So just look at the charts of Ethereum, right? Simply click on all and see whether it performed really well or not. So yeah, I mean, as far as I know, Ethereum was founded in 2014. Since then, it was pretty silent. I won't say pretty silent. It's just that the graph has gone so up that all those fluctuations is like negligible only. But we can see that when it was launched, it was like for $0.6. Then it rose to like $10, which is again substantial increase. And then again goes to like, it was pretty much fluctuating in the last 1 year, and then $43, and then the rise we can see. So Ethereum is actually a very good cryptocurrency, and this guy Charles Hoskinson was a co-founder. So from the fundamental point of view, Cardano is a very good investment project, right? So this is just one part that you need to look for, and the other part is like upcoming developments. Like when again, if you talk about Ethereum, so Ethereum is based on, when Ethereum was launched, it was based on proof of work concept. Now, for people who don't know what is proof of work, it's like, this to do a transaction on Ethereum network, like sending one Ethereum to someone else, it requires proof of work. That means it requires computation power. It means that a lot of energy gets consumed just to transfer one Ethereum to someone else. This means if a lot of electricity is getting consumed, it has a negative impact on the environment. The carbon print is quite a lot. So it is not good for the world. I mean, it's not good for the environment. So this is one of the critics. What is the reason for fluctuation? Okay, I'll tell that later. Definitely. So so proof of work is right now considered as a very old technology. But what is happening? Even though this guy is co-founder, everything, he played no role. Okay, okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, I just a second. It's not okay. No rolling booster with here, so it's again. Well, if that's the case, then we need to further find, we need to further research on the Cardano team, and then and there itself we need to go to their website and see who are all the people who are behind Cardano, and then do a brief research on on the old projects. Anyway, that being said, yes. So like I was talking about the proof of work concept. So Ethereum was way back in 2014 or 15. It was working on a proof of work concept, but right now a lot of people are saying that we need to shift from proof of work to proof of stake. Now, proof of stake is something where there won't be any kind of computers like high computation power will not be required. It's just that you need to have more Ethereum, and once you have more Ethereum, you it will automatically verify all the transactions. Now, again, it's very difficult to explain what is proof of stake in just a limited time. But the point is that Ethereum is, getting, how should I put this? There's a transition from proof of work to proof of stake. That's all. So there's a technological advancement, and that's the reason why Ethereum price should go up, which it has since the year 2015. Because this announcement that we will be going for proof of stake was announced 2015 or 2016 only. So that's one of the reasons why the price of Ethereum is going up. So this is again the fundamentals of cryptocurrency, that just to look into the upcoming developments. Apart from that, we also need to understand that do they really have any practical usage? And one of the biggest usage of Ethereum, or for that matter, any cryptocurrency, is that decentralized applications. And one of the subsections of decentralized application is DeFi, decentralized finance. You guys must have heard about it, and if not, that is totally fine. I'll explain that later, right now, not later. Yes, so proof of stake means less kind of energy consumption. Definitely, it's like it's proof of work is taking like 100% of the energy. Proof of stake will take like will reduce energy consumption by 99%. It's someone just said that on one of the GitHubs. However, proof of stake still has not been deployed on Ethereum. It's in a transition state, so we need to watch out how exactly is that performing. Anyway, the second point is that we need to talk about DeFi, right? Now, DeFi is like a decentralized, it's a part of decentralized application platform. And when we talk about DeFi in simple terms, it means decentralized finance, which means a bank, literally a bank on a crypto platform. So one of the main applications of DeFi is that you can borrow and lend money at a very low interest rates. So one of the websites that I want to show you guys is, I think it's Compound, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's Compound Finance. So if we go to any bank today and if you want them, just give us loan, the interest rate is how much? Like 8%, 10%, 12%, that's the interest rate, right? But if you go to Compound, it's a decentralized finance. It's more like a bank. And if you want to borrow money from them, we'll just see how much they are charging for that. So these are the cryptocurrencies which fluctuate over the course of time. But there are a few cryptocurrencies like stable coins, right? One of the stable coins are is USDT Tether. So this is the stable coin. So if one of the feature of this cryptocurrency is that its value will always remain $1. It is free of fluctuations. So today, if I want to transfer one Bitcoin to someone else, it might lose its real value in the course of action, in the course of time. But if I send one Tether to someone else, it will still remain $1 only. So the fluctuation is not there. So if you're trying to borrow some money from the market, from the blockchain market, from the crypto market, and if you can simply borrow this coin. And if we are borrowing this coin, we can see how much is the rate. It's 3.72%. Guys, it's really amazing, because if you try to borrow fiat currency, like this is exactly like fiat currency only, even though it's on blockchain, it's still the value is very stable, right? So if you're trying to borrow this from the market, you will hardly need to pay like 3.72% annually on this. Just a second. And the distribution up again. Okay. Yeah. So the borrow rate is only 3.72% and distribution APY. This means that this is you will get in return for using their platform. Like if you subtract this, sorry, 2.36 from this, the net interest will be like 1.5%. Okay. So this is one of the practical usage of cryptocurrencies. Now there are a lot of things like chances of mass adoption. Ethereum is being used quite a lot because there are a lot of DeFi projects. There are a lot of decentralized application that is being built on Ethereum. That's the reason why there is a chance of big mass adoption. And then do they comply with the roadmaps? So you simply, so whether, if you want to look into the fundamentals, you simply go to the Telegram group of that particular cryptocurrencies, talk to the admins, talk to the people and see whether they have completed their previous roadmaps or not. And if they haven't completed their previous roadmaps, that means it is not really a good project. I mean, they are dealing on their projects. I mean, they are dealing on their roadmaps. So yeah, it's better to leave that project. So yeah, and also it is one of the most important part is where exactly are these tokens getting traded. Okay, again. So we need to first see. I think let's just get into the the Q&A session because the presentation will go on, and I think that it's better to take the questions. Right?
Yes, Devashish, I think we could move on to the discussion session.
So are there any questions, guys?
Yeah, but thank you so much for that primer about cryptocurrencies. It was quite deep. You went quite in depth, and I'm sure that many of the doubts which the audience have would be answered. But that said, I think there are still some questions which the audience have, and let's look into some of them. So one common question which many people have about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is whether it's actually a store of value. So do these cryptocurrencies have any intrinsic value like gold from which it derives its value apart from being valuable just because it's demanded by other people?
Okay. Let me just stop this sharing. Okay, see, we need to first understand why Bitcoin is so much in high demand, right? Like I already told you, the one of the main reasons of Bitcoin is that it allows decentralized applications to be built on that. It is again, it is again a very, how should I put this? It has a usage, right? So there's a utility, there's an intrinsic utility that we talk about. A lot of before this session, a lot of you might be thinking that Bitcoin is like you just simply bet your money and the price will go up. But why people are betting in this? It is because a lot of people are actually using Bitcoin blockchain to build decentralized applications on top of that. That's the intrinsic value. Apart from that, if I'm trying to send one Bitcoin from India to America, or someone is trying to send all those money from America to India, the transaction cost is very, very less. That is again intrinsic value inside that only. So I don't think so that a lot of when people say that it has no intrinsic value, I think it does have. It's just that the awareness is not there. So yeah, I mean, to answer that question, yeah, intrinsic value is definitely there.
Okay, so to say that, I think what you meant was that since these cryptocurrencies can be applied for building applications on the blockchain, that's where they derive their value from. Okay. So another question which many people have about cryptocurrencies is its high volatility. So because of its high volatility, it makes it an unreliable measuring rod. So as we know that if this is used as a currency, it would impact the purchasing power of consumers and leave them at the mercy of big price movements. So Devashish, would it be feasible to adopt cryptocurrencies as a medium of exchange?
See, I'm happy that you guys are using the word cryptocurrency and not just Bitcoin, because the point is that if I'm trying to send one Bitcoin to you within a matter of few minutes, it can go down. So definitely it's at the mercy of the price fluctuation. But the point is that I told you that I myself, when I receive my own salary, I don't prefer to receive my salary in Bitcoins. I simply say that send me USDT. It's a stable cryptocurrency where the price will remain only $1. So the point is that the reason why I want Bitcoin to be popular among the masses, because it will invite more and more people to come into the cryptocurrency space. And once they come into the cryptocurrency space, so there are people like me and a lot of people who will say that don't use Bitcoin for the transaction, use USDT or use a stable currency for the transaction purposes, which is again like low transaction costs and very fast. So you don't need any other banks for that. So if you talk about the fluctuations, you don't really need to worry about the fluctuation if you are using cryptocurrencies, just to send the money. If you're using cryptocurrencies as an investment option, so definitely you have to bear the fluctuations in the market. But to transact money, like, just to send your money to your parents or to your cousins or to your friends, or, overseas or for that matter, even in India, you can simply use stable coins and it is free of, any kind of fluctuations.
Okay, so Devashish, very well answered. Now I think the next question is somewhat related to your presentation. And by the way, I really like the way you referred to Vijay Mallya. So that was a nice thing. So yes, if we move to the next question. So the fundamental premise of cryptocurrencies is that it is decentralized. But in today's actual scenario, major currencies are still highly concentrated in very few accounts. And a large holder can have an outsized impact on the still highly illiquid market. So one trade can often move the price to a very significant extent. So this continues to leave the small investor susceptible to big price movements and to the mercy of the whales, which are the owners in which the coins are highly concentrated. So the big question here is, how is decentralization helping retail investors like you, me, Satvik, Saleh, others, the other viewers?
Okay, again, I need to share my screen just to, help you guys understand a bit about this. See, the whoever asked this question is a very smart chap, to be honest, because this is actually one of the things that we as an employees were discussing ourselves, that the word decentralized is not so, decentralized anymore, because the kind of ways that we have. And one of the ways that, we should all address the elephant in the room is obviously Elon Musk, right? Because in one of his tweets, he just simply moved the market up and down. So there are two types of answer that I can give. Okay, the first one is just simply go to Twitter, sorry, Elon Musk Twitter, and go to his Twitter account. Where exactly is he? And this is the recommendation that I shouldn't be giving, but this is what I do personally. Okay, at the risk of my own portfolio. What I've done is that I have simply bell icon his notifications. So if Elon Musk is tweeting right now that Bitcoin is great, I will simply get that notification within like split of seconds. And what I will do is that within like another split of seconds, I'll simply go to my CoKix account and I'll invest in that particular cryptocurrency, because I know that since he has tweeted about it, it will go up. So he is a whale. We need to address that, and we need to play by that rule as well, which is not right. But since we all are here to make money, so it shouldn't affect us that what wrong is happening. But then this is a funny answer, by the way. This is not a serious investment advice, but I've made quite a lot in using this thing. But yes, the talking about the whales at the same time. There are a few cryptocurrencies where we have actual whales, and there are a few cryptocurrencies where we don't have whales, but to a common investor, to a common retail investor, it looks like it is a whale. Now, this is very confusing, but let me just show you one small thing. Let me type crypto tokenomics. I hope my spelling is right over here. So whenever new cryptocurrency is launched, right, they always talk about the tokenomics. Now, tokenomics is something like this. So suppose Sally, right? Sally is interested in cryptocurrency and he thinks that I should be making millions of dollars, so I should launch my own Sally coin. So whenever he releases his coin, this is something that every investor looks for. That let me just zoom. Yeah, let me just zoom into this. So this is a Sally coin. Okay, so he has released like 1 million or 10 million coins. So he will, he will do a distribution. Like this is for DEX liquidity. Liquidity means like the money that he'll put in the market. This is like private sale, like an IPO thing. Okay, but private sale is like IPO ka IPO. Like you get coins at really cheap price, something like $0.08. In the private sale part two, the coin price will increase like $0.16. Then seed round, then liquidity pool mining, future growth. Now the point is, all this particular four areas, right? That will be highly decentralized. Like a lot of people will invest their money, all the retail investors. So the distribution is very even. But Sally coin, in the Sally coin, Sally will have this distribution as well, where he's keeping some of the coins for a team and the advisors, because obviously he can't do all the things by himself. He will need a website designer, he will need a developer, he will need a marketing person. And this is the company, only 10% of the company reserves. This is the marketing partnership, future growth. So 50%, 20, 10, 10, and 10. So 50% of the coins will be held in one single account. Now, this is a very centralized setup, but we need to understand. And obviously, when a retail investor will come in, he will think that, dude, 50% of the money is still with Sally only. So this is this is very centralized, and I hate this point. But the main crux is that these coins, Sally cannot release these coins straight away in the market. Like he cannot dump all these coins in the market when it hits the all-time high. All these coins are are written on a smart contracts. Now, what exactly is a smart contract? It's an algorithm, where you simply write the stuff. The algorithm at which these particular coins, the team advisor company reserves, these coins will be released in the market. And most of the time, these coins are logged. These coins are kept in the escrow account. But when people don't really know much about the smart contracts, they don't really know much about whether this is logged or not. And that's the reason why they say this is highly centralized. But in reality, it is not. It is more like it is logged in the state where they will say that the new coins will be released like in the next 6 months only. Like these are 50%, and Sali will say only 2% of these coins will be released in the next 6 months, and further in next 6 months. So this is how the things are in the market. But a lot of people don't understand the locking period, the smart contracts, the contracts that are written in these smart contracts. So to answer your question, some of the cryptocurrencies are, yes, actually they are very centralized, but all the centralized cryptocurrencies that you're thinking, they are actually not. It's just that it's in the locking state. I hope I cleared the answer. I mean, or most of the world companies. I mean, someone asked.
According to me, I think it's just what you want to say is that what we see is just a tip of the glacier.
Well, it's highly simplified version, but it's like the way we are interpreting centralization is something wrong. Like I told you that Sali, the reason why Sali is having that 50% chunk is because he needs that, and also it's just because he needs it, that is wrong. But the point is that the way the rate at which those 50% will be released in the market, it will be not in a split of second. It will be like 2% per 6 months, 2% per year sometimes as well. So we don't really need to worry about that centralization part. But then a person who knows how to read a code, a person who knows how to read a smart contract, he needs to read that and he needs to see what is the rate at which the cryptocurrency will be coming in the market. If the smart contract in itself is saying that we'll release 50% in one split of second, then you need to stay away from that particular point. So yeah, to answer that question, this is how it is. Any questions?
Thank you, Devashish.
Okay,
There's one more question. So in this era of sustainability and ESG investing, many see the apparent huge electricity consumption by cryptocurrencies as an issue. There are some reports which cite that 1 month of mining Bitcoin can consume as much electricity as compared to countries like Argentina. So what is your take on this?
What I will say is that definitely in that case, it is really bad that Bitcoin is consuming so much of energy. Whereas, and that's the reason why I believe that, in the case of Bitcoin, the price, it will this particular, if the news is getting a lot of hype and it is pushed a lot, then definitely it will impact Bitcoin's price. But at the same time, we need to understand that it is not just Bitcoin which is using energy. It is other coins as well. Like Ethereum is also using a lot of energy. And to solve that issue, that's the reason why Ethereum is going from proof of work to proof of stake only. So the solution of this whole fiasco is that if you switch to proof of stake, where to transact one Ethereum or to transact one cryptocurrency to someone else's account, it will use proof of stake, which means as more and more people try to have cryptocurrency in their wallet, the whole system, the whole algorithm will use that particular cryptocurrency only to verify the transactions. Now it's getting a bit confusing, but like I said, in the crux of it, it's more like if suppose we four together, Satwik, Sali, and Rishi and I hold one Ethereum each. So we'll stake our Ethereum in one particular pool. That means there are 4 Ethereum in one particular pool, and then our Ethereum itself will verify the rest of the Ethereum transaction over the network. So there is no usage of electricity to that great extent. So in that case, I would say that, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is definitely using a lot of energy, but then one of the solution is that if Bitcoin can, do a transition from proof of work to proof of stake, then that will completely solve the problem.
Yes, very well answered. I get the point now. So the next question, I think I'll club 2 questions into one since we are short of time. So the next question is that the majority of transactions in the dark web, the illegal transactions in the dark web basically take place through cryptocurrencies. And there was a report where majority of the terrorist funding also takes place through cryptocurrencies because it is highly mobile, it is unregulated, and third, it is anonymous. So due to this, do you think this will act as a deterrent to the adoption of cryptocurrencies on a wide scale? And the second one is that there are several instances where the exchanges in India have cracked down upon the crypto market. So do you think there will be any regulation coming soon in India about cryptocurrencies?
Okay, I think about I will first answer the regulation part and then later on the dark web thing. On the regulation part, I would say that way back in 2018, we all know that the RBI they had put a restriction on the banking transaction between the banks and the crypto exchanges way back in 2018, and then all the exchanges took this particular case to the Supreme Court, and then to in last year itself in 2020, I think it was in March 2020, when the Supreme Court removed that particular restrictions. And ever since then, we can see that Bitcoin is, this particular decision was like, it is not illegal to buy Bitcoin. It is completely legal because the Supreme Court is saying that approve the transactions towards the crypto exchanges. That means it is legal. So if someone is concerned about the legality of Bitcoin, it is legal. Don't worry about that. Secondly, the point is that now what is happening is in the case of some few Indian crypto exchanges, the RBI, what RBI is doing right now is that they are giving an informal notices to all the banks saying that please don't, please don't transact all the transaction that is going to the crypto exchanges. It's an informal notice. Now, since it's an informal notice, and obviously there is no, how should I put this? There is no proof of that. And that's the reason why today we can see that the Paytm was in collaboration with some of the Indian exchanges, and now it's not working. The deposit, people are trying to deposit their Indian rupee in the crypto exchange, and it is not happening. However, we do have a solution for that, which I'll show that later in this video. So yeah, I mean, in that case, it is in a bit dilemma situation. But then talking about the future of regulations in India, I would say, just see this thing like Nirmala Sitharam's comment. Nirmala Sitharam crypto. What exactly did she say about that? Not shutting all options on cryptocurrency. She has said that on 15 March, right? So she's very. I'm not saying very optimistic, but it's like we don't really need to worry because the government is actually making some regulations. They might introduce taxes on that. They might ask you to show cryptocurrency gains in your tax incomes. So yeah, regulations are definitely coming over there. But what kind of regulations are coming? It is something that we look forward to. Another person we can check out is Anurag Thakur. Thakur on crypto. Even he's saying that will ensure interests of the crypto investors are protected. Now, this is a very big statement that is coming, from a minister like him. The government is considering all options with an open mind when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So I don't think so that we need to be we need to be concerned with the regulations. It's just that if you're making 100% profit right now, eventually the government will come in and they will ask for a tax as well. So that's the only concern that I'm not concerned. Like it's more like that's the only thing that I'll be going after. So yeah, talking about the regulations, I think I'm pretty much solved that part. And if you talk about the dark web thing, it is actually a very big concern. But the point is that see, with every new technology, there will be technologies. There will be two sides of the coin. So it's a brighter side that is like low transaction costs, low transaction fees, and then there is another side which is like the dark web thing that you mentioned. But at the same time, I would like to mention that when PhonePe came into the Indian market way back in 2008, I think 2010, something like that, we could see that there were a lot of scammers who were trying to scam normal people like our parents. Like sir, you have been like, yeah, please send us the OTP. Like you must have seen a lot of Netflix, this particular Netflix series called Jamtara. So there were a lot of scams. But back then we didn't say that we need to ban Paytm or we need to ban PhonePe. What we did was we cracked down on all those scammers and all those hackers. So in a very ethical manner, in a very logical manner, I would say that if a lot of Bitcoin transaction is happening in the dark web, I would say that the concerned government should actually crack down on all those people who are using dark web and not on Bitcoin. So it's just a perspective that needs to be changed around that. So yeah, that's it. I mean, I think I have answered that particular question.
Yes, Devashish, thanks for the answer. So now this brings us to the end of the discussion session. I'm sure that our listeners have gained a lot of valuable insights from this information. For all those curious about the industry and are looking to get in the skin of the game, I think it would help if we would get a small walkthrough of how one can go about with investing in cryptocurrencies. So now I would request Devashish, can you just go through the process of investing?
Sure. See, first of all, I would like to say that it's not a financial advice that I'm giving. It's just that I will show you how exactly do I invest in cryptocurrencies or how exactly do I buy cryptocurrencies. So one of the exchanges that I use is my very own exchange, that is OKX.com, right? So what exactly I do is that I go to the buy and sell section, and it is one of the most easiest method which you can use to buy cryptocurrency. Now to buy cryptocurrencies, USDT, like I already mentioned, it is also a cryptocurrency from which you can buy Bitcoin as well. So make sure that you're clicking over here, USDT, make sure you are clicking on buy section, and there are a lot of sellers over here. Now, please be very much, very much aware that there might be some scammers over here, because these are the people who are trying to sell cryptocurrencies, just like how people sell their property on OLX. Like we all know that on OLX itself, there are a lot of scammers. Like they say that I have an iPhone, but it's actually not an iPhone. Sometimes they just simply accept money from you and then they run away. So I would say that whenever you go to this particular platform, you need to see whether the person is a V verified. That is one of the benchmark. Secondly, you need to see how much is the completion rate. It is 99.72, which is quite a lot. And how many orders he has completed. It is 2,000 plus orders, so it is good. Now this particular person, like Ben 10, he has just completed 2 orders and the percentage is 100%. So this is not a good rating for a person to sell cryptocurrencies. Yogi Wins, he has 92%, which is good, and he has also completed 180 orders, which is again good. So I would say, just to be on the safer side, I would choose someone who has a blue color, verified markings. So just I will look at the rate at which I'm buying USDT. Usually $1 in India is like 74 rupees, but obviously it's an Indian market, so the people sell everything at premium only. So I will, and the minimum amount that I can use, the minimum amount that I can buy USDT is like 6,400 Indian rupee. That is like, I think $50 only. So I'll just show you how exactly am I buying this. I'll click on buy USDT button, and then I will enter like 7,000 rupees. It is actually $87.01, and I will pay it via bank transfer. See, you don't really need to go to your bank servers and do a NF. Sorry, you log in into the net banking. You can simply use a mobile like PhonePe, Paytm, and then you can transact via 2 account wala thing. So I will click on buy USDT. Just simply click on I understand. Click on continue, and it will open another window. Now this is you need to pay this 7,000 rupees to this particular person, Vito Fiat Limited. Okay, and this is the account number, his bank account number. This is the bank name, ICICI Bank, IFSC code, and this is the payment remarks that you need to put. So let me just open my phone right now, and I'll pay it via Paytm only. Wait a second. So just, can you guys see the phone? Sorry. Okay, once you go to the Paytm, you need to click on send money to anyone and enter the bank account, right? So this is how a Paytm interface looks like. If you guys can see, I think. Anyway, like I'm pretty sure you guys can send that money to this particular person, right? In any way. So the number that you need to add is 3904, whatever the account number is, ICICI Bank, and then IFSC code. And once you have made the payment, right, you need to click on I have paid next step. So let me just do that right now. ICICI Bank, there you go. Bank account is 3904 0500. Guys, do help me out with this if I'm writing the right number. 0519. Enter account number 390 3904 0500 0519. Cool. And now I need to enter the IFSC code, that is ICIC 0000123 3904. Okay. Let me just put account holder's name. So I also need to write the account holder's name, that is Vito Fiat. Fiat Private Limited. So now I'm transferring like 7,000 rupees. I don't think so you guys can see this, but again, I'm sending 7,000 rupees to this particular account number. And there we go. So yeah, I've paid my money to this particular account number, and now I'm clicking on I've paid next step, right? And once I click on this, it will ask for a RRN number. Now this RRN number is like the reference number that you will receive on your SMS. So my RRN number is, it's like reference number. Okay. It is 114816648 717, and I'll click on paid. So once you make a payment, to this particular person, you will receive an SMS from the bank, and in the bank SMS code there will be this reference number. You simply need to enter here and click on paid. So it will show you like you have successfully paid for your order. Please wait for the seller to release the asset. Now what is happening over here is that the seller will confirm whether he has received 7,000 in his account or not. And once he confirms this, he will release the USDT to your account, right? So we need to wait for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Meanwhile, if you guys have any other questions, I will be happy to, answer those questions. And we can see that this remind to confirm will change to assets transferred in the next 2-3 minutes. I will also write it like I have transferred the amount. Please release USDT. Cool. So yeah, I mean, let's wait for him like 2-3 minutes. But at the same time, if you guys have any more questions, do ask me.
Devashish, there's a good question in the chat box. What websites do you suggest we use for reading up on crypto?
Okay. So I would say that one of the website is CoinDesk. So this CoinDesk is there. There is another website called Cointelegraph. So these two are the websites that I follow, like, right? So yeah, to answer the question, these are two websites that you must be following. There are a lot of websites as well, but these are the main ones. Apart from that, I could also see one of the questions that was popping up. Okay, the payment and the transfer of USDT is not linked automatically. So what if I transfer the money and the guy at the other end doesn't send the USDT to me? Okay, so right now, what I will say is that just have a look at this order. I'll go to the orders. So the guy has still not sent me any Bitcoins. Oh, sorry, any USDT, right? Let's just open this. So if he doesn't send you the USDT in like 5 minutes, you can always go for an appeal. Now this whole issue will be taken to the OKX customer service, and they will ask you for all the payments. Like just show them your screenshot that you have sent the money to this guy, and then the OKX people will send you the money. They will simply cancel the order. So you don't really need to worry about that. Otherwise, what will happen is that this guy who's sending his USDT to you, even his money, his USDT has been locked with OKX. It's not like the USDT is in his private bank balance. The USDT is actually with OKX. It's just that both the parties need to confirm, and that's the only thing. So even if you're sending your money and he's not sending it to you, just simply click on file and appeal. That's all. Do not talk to that person. Simply say that this is an issue that is. Simply go to OKX and say that this is the issue that I'm facing, and they will resolve it within like no time. So yeah, we are still waiting for him, and if he does not send the money, I think it's one of the best example that I can show you that if he's a scammer, then how exactly you can counter him. By the way, he's not a scammer because we have already verified this guy. So I would suggest you to always trade with a verified person. At the same time, any more questions in the comment sections? Thank you. Someone is asking me that are the price targets of Bitcoin going to 500K realistic? Well, I would say that 500K is like, yeah, definitely it can go up there. But the point is, when will it go? Like if you're thinking like today itself or like in the next few months, probably not. But in the long run, it can go to that great extent because the supply of Bitcoin is getting limited not day by day, like in every 4 years. So the supply is getting, and this is called a Bitcoin halving process, which you further need, you need to further read on this. So I would say that, yeah, it can go, but in the next 5 years, I would say, but yeah, we never know like how crazy can Bitcoin go in this case. It totally depends on how people are perceiving. At the same time, let's see whether that guy has made the payment or not. Okay, he still has not. That is fine because he will, because he's a verified merchant. Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, so Devashish, we can go to the next stage of our process.
Okay, cool. Anyway, guys, I just had a small request from you all. That is, whatever I've taught you today, I want you guys to go to our Instagram page. There are a few questions over here, not this one, but yeah, from here, crypto trivia. So please go to this page, and there are a few questions like just answer this in the comment section. Okay. Cryptocurrency that has its own blockchain and is only used for payment. Which one is it? Is it like coin or token? Please just write it down in the comment section. Just want to see whatever I have taught so far, is it working or not? I don't see anyone writing over there. That's fine. Maybe I'm not that good teacher that I used to think I am.
No, there are a lot of people who are putting out their messages in chat box. Devashish can.
No, that is fine. That is fine. I mean, it's just that it's okay that if you guys don't want to type it, it's just that just go to this page, to this Instagram page, and there itself you can see, you can answer all these questions.
No, Devashish.
Oh, okay,
you
okay. These people are writing
Yeah,
that.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, that's great. Okay, another question. P2P stands for. I have not told you this because I've been saying P2P, B2B only. So you guys can do your own research, and yeah, you can. Okay, someone is saying P2P. A lot of you guys know about this. Cool. The third question. What are the cryptocurrencies that are not called Bitcoin? Okay, I'll remove this. It's just that you guys need to answer that by yourself. So yeah, this guy has not sent USDT to me, but I know he will because he's verified. But still, suppose you have traded with someone who has not given you the USDT so far, just click on the appeal to customer service. Appeal the reason I have paid, but the crypto is not released. Click over here. Fail to reach to the counter appeal reason. Fail to reach to the counterparty. Just simply click on this and file an appeal. Simple as that. But I'm very sure that this guy will send me the money, the USDT. So I'm not filing an appeal against him. So yeah, that's it. How you can buy Bitcoin. How you can buy USDT, and then you can use that particular USDT to buy Bitcoin over here. Like go to the trade, and then go to this particular section. Buy Bitcoin. Yeah, it's right now it's trading at $36,940, $930, and then there itself you will see that you will be having USDT. So simply drag this particular button like this, and then click on the buy section. Yeah, also make sure that it's in market. So you need to go to this particular section like BTC, click on markets, and then simply drag this whole portion and then click on buy BTC. That's all. And that's how you will buy the Bitcoins.
Thank you, Devashish. So with this, we reach the end of the webinar. I, on behalf of the entire FIC team, would like to thank you for your valuable insights. And I'm sure it gave students much needed clarity on this emerging technology. We would also like to thank Matthew sir for his guidance and support. We thank you all for attending. So we shall be sharing the LinkedIn profile of the speaker as well as other needed resources. So feel free to reach out if you have any queries. Also, don't forget to follow OKX India as well as the FIC DPS Instagram page for more interesting updates. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank